Mike Moore Media, the first place to hear Rockingham County news and information.
On our media line, Dr. Nurica Good, general dentist at Good Smiles in Mayodan. And she's in her office right now to chat with us. Hey, Dr. Good.
Good morning.
Always good to talk to you, and I appreciate it. We wanted to talk about fillings today. Let's start by giving us a definition of amalgam fillings, please.
Sure. So an amalgam filling is a metal alloy. So it's a little mercury, a little silver, a little tin, and it whenever you prep a tooth, then you can put in an amalgam filling, and the amalgam is like a putty at first, and then you pack it into the tooth, and it hardens, but it takes a couple days to harden. So, but that's what an amalgam is, and it's been used for filling teeth for decades. Mm-hmm. I'm sure it might even go beyond decades. But it has a long history of being a filling product that people have used, and they're using less and less of now.
Yeah. Well, it's a blend, as you're saying, and I did a little research on this. So apparently amalgams go back over 150 years, so it's been around a long time. But people are making some changes, and why is that, Dr. Good?
Well, so people are making changes, one, for cosmetics. So amalgam fillings most people know them as the silver-colored fillings. Mm-hmm. And so they're making changes for cosmetics. Also, people are making changes because, of the mercury content. But I think that there's some misconceptions about the mercury content. And so people are thinking, oh, my gosh, this amalgam is leaching into me, and, the mercury in the amalgam is leaching into me and that sort of thing. But that's not really the case. So once it is placed, then it fully sets, and that's that. And but again, we get back to most people, even if it is the best product for, a particular tooth, then a lot of times people still want composite because everyone wants to look like they've never had a cavity.
Right. Yeah. Well, I was going to say, we do hear a lot about mercury and even connected to Alzheimer's and things like that. But you're saying that doesn't seem to be a real issue in your opinion.
In my opinion, no, sir. There are so many people who still have amalgams in now, and it's not like everyone has any kind of researched statistical health disadvantage due to having an amalgam. So while it may leach a little bit of mercury vapor, it's still not enough to do the deleterious effects that some claim that amalgam can cause.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, and another thing is, in terms of your teeth, though, I mean, I'm not trying to put your business out in the street. However, you may have had an amalgam placed in your lifetime, and you may still have it. And I think there are a lot of benefits to an amalgam that has been placed. I mean, I'm not even sure how. I have a few in my mouth as well. And I don't even know when they were placed, to be honest with you. It's been that long ago. Mm-hmm. But it is a very long-lasting material. It's so along with the long-lasting part, what that means for a consumer, for a patient, is that if you take care of it, if you brush and you floss, then it is likely that it would stay healthy and with you for a very long time. Anything that you don't take care of is going to fail. So whether it be an amalgam, whether it be a composite, whether it be your natural untouched tooth, if you don't take care of it, then something's going to happen most likely. There are a few people who they don't take care of their teeth, and yet they somehow or another have escaped periodontal disease and they have escaped cavities, but they're very few and far between. And I try to remind patients that no matter what it is that you get, whether it be an amalgam, composite, an implant, anything, a crown, there is nothing that is without care. So if you do have an amalgam placed, then you're going to care for it, hopefully the same as you would a composite. So regarding composites, that's the tooth-colored fillings. And tooth-colored fillings are great. They certainly have quite a few benefits in terms of course, in the anterior. You definitely want to have a composite because nobody wants to see, the dark silver on a front tooth. But the downside of some composites is that sometimes they don't last as long. So now composites are very pretty. I mean, I must tell you, a dentist, most dentists, I would say, could call themselves cosmetic dentists because we're all using composite materials that are very pretty. They look very much like your natural tooth structure, unlike composites, older composites. You'll see some people with older composites, and their composites look maybe a little yellowish, a little grainy, not as easily polished, and so you'll be able to pick those out on occasion. But and those have stayed a very long time. But the prettier we have gotten somehow or another, then sometimes they don't last as long as we would like. So on an amalgam, on the other hand, so if you have an amalgam, like I was talking about earlier, if you have an amalgam, say on a posterior tooth, you brush it, you floss it, you take care of it, it is quite likely that you could keep it for decades. Whereas on a composite, the composites that are placed now, it is highly unlikely that you would keep it for decades. It's likely that you would have it replaced at some point, either due to marginal leakage. So marginal leakage is what happens when the filling material kind of pulls away from the tooth, and it's subtle. It's not like you all of a sudden feel a big gap with your tongue or anything like that. It's subtle, but your dental professional will be able to note it right off because they'll see some darkness accruing around the edges of that composite, and so they'll know, okay, wait a minute, we have some leakage going on. It is time for you to have this redone. But that's the thing about them. So on the one hand, an amalgam, it may be, I hate to use the term, might be less aesthetic. Let's call it that. I was going to say ugly, but less aesthetic than a tooth-colored filling. But the amalgam, you may be able to keep that much longer. The other thing is that amalgams are not, they're not necessarily moisture sensitive on placement, whereas a composite is moisture sensitive. So when you have a composite place, then, your dentist is going to tell you, okay, keep your tongue out of this. Okay, you got to stay open. At this point, from this point forward, everything has to stay dry. And that is because they're very moisture sensitive. So if you have a deeper filling that's closer to the gum line and maybe a little more moisture is in there, then you might want to consider having an amalgam place, just because if you don't have a composite completely dry or the preparation completely dry for a composite, then you're not going to get the best seal.
Yeah. Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah, and I like that part talking about the lifespan and just proper care of anything, and you're getting a lot more years out of that.
Yes. Yeah, you can get a lot more years out of an amalgam, but I mean, but I think it's also personal preference. We have people who come in and they flat out, I don't want any amalgam. I only want composite. And we also have people who come in and they have amalgams in posterior teeth, and they're like, well, I've been seeing on the news that we should have all these amalgams taken out. I personally would discourage that, because I think sometimes you're doing someone a disservice if you by disrupting something that has lasted them for years. So, and then you're putting in something that the maintenance is a little bit higher, just because of the frequency in which you may have to replace the material.
Yeah.
So I think if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah. Well,
if you do have a problem, then maybe consider a composite if you do have a problem with your existing amalgam.
Yeah. Well, in fact, I have a family member in another state, and she's been told to replace all of these that have been in for years and years and years. And so, like you're saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Yeah.
Right. And also on, we were talking earlier about potential like mercury vapor release. Well, that the potential for that to happen would be highest upon removal, upon placement. Yeah. Right? In between, that's not the problem. You walking around with your amalgam in there that's fully set, and it's, you're cruising along. That's not the problem time. It is upon removal. So then, for those people who are like, oh my gosh, I'm risking exposure, well, yeah, you are risking more exposure once you have it removed. If you needlessly have it removed. Oh, one other thing I do want to say is that an interesting thing about amalgams is, although they may be with you for a very long time, sometimes people who have an amalgam filling in, silver-colored filling in, sometimes their teeth around the amalgam, their tooth structure around the amalgam, it is sometimes more prone to cracking. And so what happens oftentimes is the amalgam will stay, but the tooth may crack. And so you may have little crazing around, or it may be that, part of your tooth structure cracks over time. So that would be one other downside, is that oftentimes any tooth, you just don't know, because no one thinks about this unless they lose a tooth. Nobody thinks about how many times they put their teeth together to chew, speak, swallow in a day. And so all of that, you think about repeated cycles. So like when they're testing things on TV and they say, we put this through 30,000 cycles. Well, you don't even think about it, but your teeth, you're putting them through millions of cycles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Every time you chew, speak, swallow, whatever. So, everything has its place. But that would be one downside. And it's not, oh my gosh, I have an amalgam, my teeth are going to crack. That's not the way it works either. So it's just something that happens occasionally. It's not all the time. Like I was saying, I still have my amalgams, and my teeth haven't given up. So
yeah, well, same here. Yeah, I'm in the same shape, and I can't remember. Some of these have been in for a long, long time, and no problem at all. So, but there again, going back to proper care as well. This is always educational and enlightening to talk to you, Dr. Good. I appreciate your insight on this, because there's a lot of talk out there, and you've just given us some good information here as we're looking at things like this. So thank you for that, for your time.
Of course. Mike, if you wouldn't mind, can I just put a plug in there for the dental people?
Sure.
Okay, so with the holidays coming up, there are probably going to be some great deals on electronic toothbrushes, on water picks, on different things like that may be helpful. And people don't think about those as fantastic Christmas gifts or holiday gifts if it's not Christmas. But please keep those in mind. There's still a lot of people out there who don't have an electronic toothbrush. That's a wonderful gift. It's a gift that keeps on giving. Or, say, a water pick for people who are having a hard time either with dexterity on flossing. Water pick might be an excellent choice. So anyway, as people are doing their Christmas shopping, please consider maybe a dental gift. It might be the right thing for somebody, and that would be fantastic. It's the gift that keeps on giving.
Oh, wow, that's a great idea. We may do a little bit more on that on our December segment. That's a great idea. But thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for mentioning it now. Yeah, okay. Always good to talk to Dr. Good. Thank you, and all the best to you and everyone in the office. And tell us again, as we're finishing up, where you're located, hours, and things like that, Dr. Good.
Yes, sir. So we are located on 603 South Ayersville Road, located in Mayodan. And the phone number is 336-427-8544. And our hours are 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. with lunch from 1 to 2. And we alternate between having Wednesday off and Friday off each week. And so if you would please call to schedule, and someone will help you navigate through our system and figure out when would be the best time for you to come in.
Okay. Thank you again for your time and your wonderful information. Have a good week. We'll talk to you again next month.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Have a great week.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Dr. Nurica Good at Good Smiles on South Ayersville Road in Mayodan. You can go to her website for more information and a lot of good resources there at goodsmilesdentistry.com, goodsmilesdentistry.com. And you can find a direct link to her website at mikemore.media. Thank you for listening.